And we're live. I hear crickets behind me. Okay, never mind. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Prime Minister's Questions Response video. I don't know if I should be calling it that. In any case, today's subject is mostly Windrush related. I thought, yay, let's do that. Have I actually put this on the right channel? I have. Ha! Victory is mine! As stated, the subject is predominantly around the Windrush generation, but also, let's see, racism, Stephen Lawrence, and eventually Brexit comes up, because that's exciting. And I'm all about that excitement. So yeah, I do have quite a number of sources for this. And as and when they come up, I might put them on the screen as well. I'm not sure just yet. It is quite time consuming. But mostly because I'm a bit lazy, let's face it. Oh, it's buffering. What's going on here? Is it not working? No, it's fine on my end. Screw it. In any case, I think we should probably start. I just need to check one thing, because the chat's not showing on my end. Oh, it's because nobody's written in the chat. Okay, that's good. That's fine. What I'll do is I'll do that. Then I can tab out, go here, and boom. Okay. Well, let's just dive right in, shall we? Oh. Yep.
Questions to the Prime Minister. Gavin Robinson.
Question number one, Mr. Speaker.
The Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will wish to join me in offering our warmest congratulations to their Royal Highnesses, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge.
They're set to announce the baby name soon, and I really hope that... Hello, Esteem. I really hope the royal couple... I hope they go with Trevor. Prince Trevor. I like the sound of this. And I think Prince William and Kate Middleton... Is she still Kate Middleton or is she Kate Windsor? Doesn't matter. I hope that they choose the name Trevor for their son. Because I think it's a fantastic name. Prince Trevor.
Birth of their son earlier this week. Mr. Speaker, I know members across the House will want to join me in marking Stephen Lawrence's death 25 years ago. For each of those years, the Lawrence family have fought heroically to ensure that their son's life and death will never be forgotten.
We are now actually going to go into a source because I think it's important we talk about this. Where is it? Here it is. Right, so it was recently announced that a national commemoration is to take place on the 22nd of April each year in memory of the murdered teenager Stephen Lawrence. For those that don't know, ew, hello Charles. For those that don't know, I have included in the description a source from the BBC which has a timeline of events. Stephen Lawrence was murdered in 1993. He was stabbed to death in an unprovoked attack by a gang of white youths as he waited at a bus stop in southeast London with a friend. On April 23rd, 1993, there were suspects that were identified. Because the day after the murder, a letter giving the names of the suspects is left in a telephone box, and then police began surveillance on the homes of the respected suspects 4 days later. On the 7th of May, hang on, let's just go with June 1993 because this has got a weird little mark in it. There were two suspects were arrested and two of them were charged. They have since, yeah, of course it's London, Stan. Of course, those who were charged denied them. In July, though, of 1993, the charges were dropped because the ID evidence from the friend that was with Stephen Lawrence was considered unreliable. In December of 93, an inquest was halted into Stephen's death after the family's lawyer said there is dramatic new evidence. In April 94, the CPS refused then to prosecute, as they believed there was insufficient evidence to bring charges based on the new evidence, which was believed to be the identification of further suspects. In September 94, a private prosecution was launched. That sounds shifty. In any case, Stephen's parents launched a private prosecution against the three suspects: Gary Dobson, Luke Knight, and Neil Accord. I think Accord? A private prosecution is the same as a standard one, but it's not brought by the CPS, which is the Crown Prosecution Service. In December 94, there was police surveillance. Covert video shot over several days in Dobson's flat captures him and Norris using strong racist and violent language. Accord and Knight also caught on camera doing the same thing. That does not, by the way, mean that they are guilty of murder. It means they're racist, basically. Tea is gross, right. In April 96, the private prosecution failed. In 1997, the inquest resumed, and the 5 suspects refused to answer questions. A verdict of unlawful killing in a completely unprovoked racist attack by 5 youths is delivered. So the Daily Mail, in 97, the Daily Mail newspaper used its front page to name the 5 men it says killed Stephen Lawrence, and it invited them to sue them if it was wrong. Which is kind of brave, back when newspapers actually, did good. In March 97, the Police Complaints Authority investigation, or the Kent Constabulary, launched a probe into police conduct, which 9 months later highlighted significant weaknesses, omissions, and lost opportunities, but there was no evidence of racist conduct. There is a report that we're going to be getting into in a little bit as well. You're going to make it a new thing, are you, then, Dibula? Okay. In July 97, a public inquiry was announced by Jack Straw, and it was chaired by William Macpherson. There was a report made by him not long after. In March 98, the inquiry opened. In 98, the police issued an apology, admitting there had been failures in the investigation. And then in 99, Macpherson's report was published, and it accused the Metropolitan Police of institutional racism and makes quite a lot of recommendations, 70 in total, many aimed at improving police attitudes towards racism. It also included proposals for change in the law, including strengthening the Race Relations Act to try and clamp down on discrimination, which is fair. In September 2002, Neil Accord, who I believe was one of the 3 earlier mentioned, was jailed for 18 months for a racist attack on an off-duty police officer. In 2004, a trial was ruled out as the CPS announced there was insufficient evidence to prosecute anyone for Stephen's murder following a review. In 2005, the government dropped the legal principle which prevented suspects being tried twice for the same crime, which I think is called double jeopardy. Yes. This goes on for quite some time, by the way, and I'm doing all of this. I've got all night. Okay, I've got until midnight. In November 2007, there was a forensic review. It gathered evidence at the time, looking at opportunities to use new technology to find leads, which is something that happens to this day where we take old cases and I think there was even a TV show on that same kind of nonsense. Let's see, where's the report anniversary? Okay, in July 2010. Oh no, that not even related. Another one of the suspects was jailed, but for drug stuff mostly. In 2011, Gary Dobson, who went to jail for 5 years for the drug thing, and David Norris, just was racist. Faced trial for murder of Stephen Lawrence following a review of the evidence. The Court of Appeal decides that there is enough new and substantial evidence to allow Dobson's acquittal to be quashed, which is good, I guess. In November 2011, the trial began. In January 2012, both were found guilty of murder. Dobson was jailed for 15 years and Norris for 14 years. So that's pretty much the timeline, because, yeah. It was pretty much handled pretty poorly. And hello to chat. Right, yes, so that's Stephen Lawrence stuff, all relevant. As a Memorial Day. There is more to this, and Macpherson report will be coming up soon. I'm going to go into that when it crops up again. So let's instead continue with this.
And as I announced earlier this week, the government will work with the Stephen Lawrence Charitable Trust to establish a national annual commemoration of
Gay. Oh, if they do a statue, oh my life.
Stephen's life and legacy.
His legacy is built on the back of making white people feel guilty for an isolated incident. That's not to take away for what happened to him and how we were certainly, I say we, how people were then. There were some dicks then. There are dicks now. It's just that how racism is interpreted is very different now. It seems to encompass everyone but white people.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Gavin Robinson.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of my right honourable colleagues and honourable colleagues, can we acknowledge the fortitude of the Lawrence family and indeed the joy that this nation shares on a royal birth. Mr. Speaker, in 2017, through the Confidence and Supply Agreement, the Prime Minister...
Okay, before we even go into that, the Confidence and Supply Agreement is... It's a DUP thing. I think I have it up. Yes. It's basically it's the Conservative and DUP agreement and financial support for Northern Ireland. That's basically it. I just thought I'd let you know. There is linked in the description. It's so fucking tedious as well. I think the only thing people remember about the DUP is that they were given $2 billion to to let Theresa May stay in charge, essentially. Anyway, continuing.
The Minister not only recognised the need to give Northern Ireland an economic boost, she agreed a package of measures including a Belfast region city deal, a city deal for others, and ultra-fast broadband investment.
How soon after hearing that Northern Ireland were getting extra funds do you think other devolved administrations were like, but where my shekels at?
That will transform our part of this United Kingdom. In responding to the eager anticipation of our communities and in reaffirming her commitment, will she ensure sufficient progress is made to advance both in time for the autumn budget?
Well, can I say to the...
I just that it's quite early to be talking about the autumn budget, so that it's not even like spring properly yet. But whatever makes you happy.
Honourable gentleman that has raised an important issue. He's absolutely right. The government has set out several public commitments, including in the Confidence and Supply Agreement, to work towards a comprehensive and ambitious set of city deals across Northern Ireland. There is progress being made, which I welcome, by the Belfast City Region partners in developing the city deal proposals. I look forward to their submission, which will be considered obviously by the government. Of course, in the absence of an executive, there are some issues to work through. But can I assure the honourable gentleman that my right honourable friend, the Northern Ireland Secretary, is committed to working positively with partners in the UK Government, the Belfast City Region and the Northern Ireland Civil Service to progress the city deal.
Just before the next question is asked, which is another one before Corbyn, I'd like to remind people that hate speech will not be tolerated in my chat. Just saying.
Andrew Bowie.
Earlier than expected, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. Yesterday, the Welsh Government reached an agreement with Her Majesty's Government on the withdrawal bill.
Oh, this is going to come up later. The very first question the SNP will ask after Corbyn has wasted his 6 questions will be about Brexit, which is the withdrawal bill. It's gonna be referencing to amendments and who does and does not support certain facets of the EU, quite frankly, they all need to shut the fuck up. I know they're representing the interests of their country, but now they need to respect the result and stop then moving the goalposts to devolve it down to nationality. You're a part of a union. Get over yourselves. Anyway, hello to Saki John Stargazer. And did I miss anyone? Dibs. I probably did, but I do apologise. I'm not the best at keeping an eye on the chat. So let's just continue.
The Prime Minister agree with me that it's in the interest of Scotland.
Fuck this shit. Let's move on to Corbyn. Corbyn's going to make one of the very first comments he makes after, I think, congratulating the royal couple. Is going to make me laugh a little, but I'll hold it back.
Consider their position.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join the Prime Minister in congratulating the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge on the birth of their baby, and I wish
He's anti-royal. He's not sincere at all.
them well.
You know that was scripted.
I think we should also reflect that Doreen and Neville Lawrence fought for years to get justice for the death of their son. The Macpherson inquiry...
Macpherson inquiry, right. Before he even goes any further, because he's going to virtue signal and I want to talk about something else. Okay. So the summary of the Macpherson report, I'm going to read some stuff. There's some points. The report recommended a series of measures that would subject the police to greater public control, enshrine rights for victims of crime, and extend the number of offences classified as racist. Freedom of information and race relations legislation will also apply to the police. The 70 recommendations include... Oh god, there's all of them. Okay. I'm going to do all of these, by the way, because reasons. Right, so first one. Government inspectors will have full and unfettered powers to inspect police services. An investigation into the Metropolitan Police will begin immediately with particular emphasis on unsolved murders and the handling of racist incidents. Next one. The government will establish performance indicators to monitor the handling of racist incidents, level of satisfaction with the police service among ethnic minorities, training of family and witness liaison officers, racial awareness training, stop and search procedures, recruitment of ethnic minorities, and complaints about racism in police forces. Next, the Met's remit will be brought into line with that of other forces. I hope you understand that. That's good, I guess. Police forces should reflect the cultural and ethnic mix of the communities they serve. Look at that. Racial quotas. Because we need those. And no, Jean-Pierre, we cannot toss him out of helicopter yet. Not yet, because they need an opposition. A Freedom of Information Act should apply to all areas of policing, with the exception of the substantial harm test for withholding disclosure in exceptional circumstances. Race relation legislation should apply to all police officers. The definition of a racist incident will now include incidents categorized in policing terms both as crime and non-crimes. It will now encompass any incident which is perceived to be racist by the victim or any other person. Basically, a new code of practice will record all these crimes. Next, the public will be encouraged to report racist incidents by making it possible to report them 24 hours a day, and not only at police stations. Next, the Association of Chief Police Officers will devise new guidelines for reviews of investigations. The Met will review its scene of crime procedures, the way it records crimes, its internal inspections, and liaison between uniformed officers and the CID. Well, they could be uninformed. Dedicated family liaison officers must exist in every police force at local level. Any complaints or requests from a victim's family must be recorded. The Victims' Charter should be reviewed, particularly for racist incidents. And then they've got some here for the judicial system. These are short, but there's a few of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 8. Okay, so 1. No changes recommended in the standard of proof needed for the prosecution of racist crimes. 2. Any evidence of racist motivation to be declared at all stages of the prosecution, no exclusion on the grounds of plea bargaining. 3. CPS must always notify a victim of plans to discontinue a prosecution. 4. Consideration of a change in the double jeopardy law to enable the appeal court to allow a new prosecution after a acquittal, where fresh and viable evidence is presented. 5. Consideration of a change in the law that will allow prosecution of racist offences that took place other than in public. 6. Consideration of the proposition that victims or their families become civil parties to the criminal proceedings, enabling them to have access to all relevant information in the case. 7. Consideration of the provision of legal aid to victims at inquests where appropriate. And 8. Prevention of the intimidation of victims and witnesses through appropriate bail conditions. Let's see. Oh yes, there are 2 more. One for stop and search. No change in the stop and search powers of the police, basically. Police procedures, there are 6 points. They're revised first aid training for police officers, review and revision of racial awareness training in police forces, with local ethnic minorities to be involved in regular training for all police, new powers to discipline police officers for at least 5 years after their retirement. All proven racist words or acts should lead to disciplinary proceedings, and such behaviour should normally be punishable by dismissal. New steps to ensure independent investigations into serious complaints against the police, and review of selections and promotions of officers at inspector level and above. That's pretty much all the main talking points of the Macpherson report, which is linked below. I'm going to get rid of all these stupid sources. Oh yeah, get rid of all these silly sources. Right, back to Corbyn, because he's about to say something rather amusing.
Showed that institutional racism was a major factor in the inquiry.
Yeah, it's funny how times have changed so quick though, right?
We need to drive out institutional racism in all its forms, wherever it raises its head.
Really? We need to deal with racism, do we? It wasn't that long ago, less than a week in fact, that behind you some MPs were talking about their suffering at the hands of Corbynistas, shouting them down and making them feel bad when they received anti-Semitic abuse from other members or from the public. Earlier this week you met with some rabbis. You just shrugged. That's what they said. When they raised the concerns, you shrugged. This has been going on for years. It really came to light 2 years ago when, was it Ken Livingstone said something a tad out of turn. And I'm not trying to be, I don't want to just spend all my time hating on the Labour Party. But the one person who continually pontificates about inclusivity, diversity, about everything social justice essentially, is the leader of the most ridiculous, uninclusive, elitist sham of a party, and racist. Let's not forget here, Jews by very definitions are a race. So let's deal with the institutional racism that seems to be okay with Jewish persecution within your party. And you're going to notice behind Corbyn on the left with the red, I believe, dress, she's going to be pointing all at the Conservatives in a minute. If the Conservatives do something blatantly racist, and it isn't that Windrush shit, yeah, you got a leg to stand on. If it's the Windrush shit, oh my life, that stuff is bullshit. That's petty on a whole different level. I'll agree there are a whole load of fuck-ups, but it doesn't make them racist. Sargon for PM. Oh dear, don't say that to me, you'll get an ego boost.
Within our society.
This one here. See this little bimbo here. Biddy. There's a lot of women around Corbyn's there as well, have you noticed? I've just realised there's Tom here, his deputy, some fat fuck. But the Whammons, and token black lady, She only ever talks whenever she has to say something about race. Because apparently she has nothing else valuable to contribute. Imagine my shock.
Mr. Speaker, we recognise that the Home Secretary has rightly apologised to the Windrush generation and made a commitment to compensate people for the hardship they've endured.
But will it ever be good enough? I know your answer because you're going to make it quite clear on your 6th question what you think. This whole situation is a big clusterfuck. It's an absolute mess. And I feel really bad for the Windrush generation. They have had to go through some rather nasty things. And I hope they are compensated. I hope they're also given the right citizenship they duly deserve. And I hope they are given a very, very good apology. Ideally, in person, by Amber Rudd. She is the face of Home Office, therefore she should do it in person to every single one of them. Smash Sargon, I'll take my... Yeah, sure, I'm far too lazy.
Government is committed to compensation in theory, but as yet nothing in practice. There's an understandable lack of trust by the Windrush generation. So can the...
It just seems like you can't win when you know they can't trust you, and rightly so. I'm not going to deny or refute their inability to trust because of what has happened to them. But do you see it as possible to win when you know they don't trust you? Because I don't think you can. How do you earn trust that doesn't exist? Well, anymore anyway.
Prime Minister today be clear and confirm that those British citizens who've worked, paid taxes here for decades, wrongly denied pensions and benefits will be fully compensated.
Right, now before she, I don't want to misgender Theresa May, but I believe she's female. Before she does that, on the thumbnail of this, I put conflating legal and illegal immigrants. The reason for that is because when I first listened to this, I got a bit confused. Because whenever he asked questions on the Windrush generation, he kind of made it seem like he was conflating them both. And I know that some are going to say that he is right, that the way they were treated was as if they are illegal immigrants, and he's right, but he will draw on examples from actual instances involving legitimate concerns and legislation raised to tackle illegal immigration. It gets a bit tiring. So let's hear Theresa May's answer. And hello Malachite and Trups. Hello Trups.
Can I first of all say to the Right Honourable Gentleman, it is absolutely right that across this House we should all be absolutely clear in our determination to ensure that we stamp out racism in every form.
I want to see a very public inquiry into the Labour Party. I want Jeremy Corbyn to say, we will very publicly, with full transparency, address the very much legitimate concerns of the many, not the few. Haha, your slogan after all. Well, actually it's a communist slogan, but whatever. To tackle the claims of anti-Semitism. Now I know Keir Starmer has accused one of the union leaders of smearing the Labour Party. Well, unfortunately, the incident he describes is anti-Semitic. I asked on my server people to give me examples because I needed it for this and for a video, because I still intend I might do a video, on Labour's anti-Semitism. I wanted to compile a list of sources together for it. Incidents where it happened, so starting with Ken Livingstone to present. Naz Shah, of course, as well. So I'm going to be doing that at some point. He did. At one point, Jeremy Corbyn did at one point, in fact, support the idea of government-appointed relationships, I believe, until 2015. So let's hear this answer.
Let me set out the House the action that has been taken, because my right honourable friend did make very clear the offering the other day in her statement before the House that.
Okay, chat. Excuse me, Jean-Pierre. The reason why is because Michael Gove stabbed Boris Johnson in the back. That's why Theresa May won, because Michael Gove stabbed his friend in the back. Yeah.
Those who came here before the 1st of January 73 from Commonwealth countries, this is from Commonwealth countries as a whole, will be offered citizenship status without paying the fee, without taking the knowledge of language and life in the UK test. And the children of that generation, the Windrush.
Miss Steam, I can indeed send you the article after the stream. It's not. Sorry, I can't multitask. A quick Google search, though. Never mind, we'll get to that in a moment. I'll continue with this. Yeah, the Windrush parameters, because it has to keep coming up, and oh dear. Yeah, we'll get to the problems in a moment.
Generation who are in the UK will in most cases be British citizens already, but they will also be, where that's not the case, they'll be able to apply to naturalise at no further cost.
I think, although it doesn't need to be mentioned, I kind of get when it does get mentioned. You see, you don't have to say that they're not going to have to pay for this, but I know if she doesn't say it, they're going to ask her why she didn't say it. But now that she said it, they're going to use that and say, well, you didn't have to say that, like that actually matters.
Also taking action in relation to those who made their life here but retired to their country of origin and have found it difficult or impossible to return to the UK, and will work with High Commissions to make sure they can easily access the offer of formal British citizenship, because the Windrush generation are British.
Something you're going to notice is that Theresa May can't say Windrush. She says Windrush, because apparently she's the oik here.
They are part of us, and there will be a compensation scheme, which my right honourable friend.
All this right and honourable shit, yes, but it's parliamentary behaviour, maintaining decorum. It's just how we have operated for a very, very long time. In fact, longer than your country was even a thing. Yeah.
My right honourable friend will set the details of that compensation scheme out in due course. But I think everybody will see that the action the government has taken is because we know these Windrush generation, the Labour front bench shake their heads and go, oh no. The Windrush generation are British, they are part of us, and we will ensure that.
I think Labour's criticism is mostly, no matter what you do, even if you do really well and get everyone that was lost here, back here, citizenship done, I don't think they'll be sated. I think then they will shift the goalposts to the claims of institutional racism. And hello, Laura.
Mr. Speaker, it's not an act of generosity to waive citizenship fees when they're British citizens already.
Yes, they are. But they did not have the documentation to prove that. Mostly because it was lost until very recently. Now it has been found. The work can be done to get those people what they need, i.e. the documentation and the citizenship, and then suitable compensation needs to be doled out. I know that's not good enough for you, because if you had your way, you'd parade everyone down the street in shackles, all the white people, having them apologising to all the Windrush generation for fuck-ups done in the Home Office by 3 separate governments. Let's not forget here, this started in 2009 under Labour. It continued under Theresa May until she then became Prime Minister, and continued even further with Amber Rudd as Home Office or Home Secretary or whatever the fucking job is. I'm sorry, does Nicola say anything? Oh, the Scottish Parliament, right, Nicola Sturgeon, yes. I don't know what they have to say on the Windrush generation because I don't think it affects them too much. But I do love that while I was doing a little research for sources on this, a Dankula video popped up in recommended, and it was linked about Scottish history and some stupid idiot going to a museum in Scotland and talking about the white people and their pictures, and felt so appropriate. Talk about a black man complaining about something utterly trivial and based around factual history, where Scotland was all white at one point, mostly. Okay.
And they should be granted full status immediately. Mr. Speaker, 4 years ago, an internal Home Office memo stated that her hostile environment policies could...
I'm not huge on the term hostile environment, but I'm less fond of compliant environment. If you, in the chat, know anything about Warhammer 40,000, you'll know why I'm not so overly fond of the word compliant. It's very authoritarian, and within Warhammer 40k it's more totalitarian theocracy based. The world is conquered and then considered compliant under the imperial truth. It is terrible. It's actually pretty bad. The words bad optics had never been more appropriate. Hostile environment is not a great term either. Scotland forever. Yes. But the context is important. Yes, the Windrush generation were caught up because they didn't have the documentation, because the Home Office fucked up. Okay, the Home Office fucked up. 3 different governments fucked this. That's a fact. But this when you conflate illegal immigrants with them, because their documents were missing, even though I'd say they're just as liable for not bothering to go and get them to begin with, is just stupid. And it means that you have to spend an inordinate amount of time arguing that it is not the Windrush generation that are the illegal immigrants. We now know this. Can you please stop saying it as if the government is treating them that way? Because while the government has in fact done that, they are trying to correct it. And the hostile environment terminology, anyway, quote, catchphrase if you will, was used specifically for illegal immigrants. I forgot, in my own town, I've seen boats rock up on the beach with people running off them. They were not British, okay? They were on powered rubber dinghies without little outboards. It was sad because they're just running. They're gonna die of hunger. Okay. There is nothing near me. You'd have to rob somewhere, and most of the shops are owned by Kenyans who have really good locks, like shutters and all their shops. When will they drop this topic? Dali, I don't know if they'll drop it yet, because, and we'll get to it later, I get the feeling Labour are pushing for something. First of all, I think the lady to Corbyn's left you see in the, well, you can't see her in the picture, token black lady, she is implying that the Conservative Party is racist. I think until she actually says it outright, this is going to get dragged out, and then she'll be made to apologise, because honestly, you can't call a party racist. You can't do that. It's slander on a whole different level. Anyway, yes, continue.
Make it harder for people like the Windrush generation to find homes and, in its own words, provoke discrimination. Why did the Home Secretary ignore that memo?
Rather annoyingly, I don't have access to that memo. Otherwise, I would be reading it directly to you so you had full context. I could not find it. I had all day today and I was looking up, well, sources for this. I couldn't get that one.
The Right Honourable Gentleman talks about a hostile environment. What we are proposing here will, I think, flush illegal migrants out. We are trying to create a much more hostile environment in this country if you are here illegally.
The interesting thing about this is that one of the main reasons we voted Brexit was to get immigration numbers down. But also because we realised we had no say in Parliament anymore, so what was the bloody point? We're one of the main three powers, and we have the equal power to what? One of the pissy little countries with no economy? Fuck off. That's just not fair. And I say not fair because we're one of the founding members, and let's face it, rule Britannia, okay? But in any case, the government had to today, I believe, say that they're not going to be sticking to their targets numbers, bringing it down, which I think shows as an absolute weakness going on right now. It's just bled into other departments, and it's quite concerning because I was hoping that this one would have some backbone, and she probably wouldn't, look like she's about to cry half the time, and he wouldn't be hugging this for safety, and he would be using that to hide an erection.
Those are not my words. They are the words of the Right Honourable Member for Birmingham Hodge Hill when
A Labour member.
he was Labour Immigration Minister. And the Labour leader ought to know about this because the Right Honourable Gentleman sits on his front bench.
Ooh, that ponage. And batter my prostate. Wank him off.
Speaker, what I'm talking about is the Windrush generation of people...
Right. See, this is where it gets really irritating because, and I've said it before, the hostile environment was focused on illegal immigrants. Unfortunately, the Windrush generation were caught in that. Whether it be something because they... Okay, so it was because they didn't need to. I do think, and I'm not saying you should... Oh, maybe it's considered... This is victim blaming, okay? I'm about to say something that is entirely victim blaming, okay? Stop talking about the fucking Windrush generation. Yeah, I know. But unfortunately it's PMQs. What do you expect? Anyway, victim blaming time. Generally speaking, when it comes to getting things for yourself, it is down to you to get them. Whether it be necessary paperwork for a driver's license. So how is it that when that immigration law came into place in the 70s, the Windrush generation, even though they'd been here long enough to qualify, hadn't done what was needed to then get the paperwork to confirm citizenship? Did they think they didn't have to? Or were they too busy, I don't know, polishing shoes? I actually don't know why. I'm actually quite curious on that one. But at the same time, I would say that they shouldn't have had to, because at that point they became... Maybe a letter should have been sent to them, confirming they were eligible for citizenship, perhaps. That might... I don't know. I'm going somewhere with that and I've lost it. Fuck it. Let's just hear him shift the goalpost a little bit.
Who came here completely legally.
They should be talking about Telford, but they won't because they're pussies. They should be talking about the Syrian air strikes on the factories that showed with one of them there was nothing there. Or how about that Novichok thing where factories in the UK and the US, yeah, funny that, but they won't because it makes them look like idiots. Even more so than this does, which is quite impressive.
The Prime Minister herself was warned by my friend, the member for Hackney North and Stoke Newington, who's now the...
That's Diane Abbott, his former fuck buddy. And yes, Donald Trump is visiting us. I saw Kevin Logan tweet about it. I think he wants to meet up with Christy Winters and go and protest it.
Home Secretary directly about these policies in 2014.
Yes, and we saw the letter. I linked it last week. Oh, excuse me. Oh. But the letter was so poorly. The picture taken was so poor, I could barely read any of it.
And when that act was going through Parliament, the then Community Secretary Eric Pickles wrote to her warning the costs and risks considerably outweigh the benefits. Why did she ignore his advice as well as the request from my honourable friend?
I just want to point out one little detail, and I know some don't like this, but when a new government comes into place, they normally blame the previous government for the mistakes they make, and the Labour Party then are no exception. They should be blamed for some of the shit they did. Immigration was not great under Tony Blair. It was horrific. That's not to say we've done very well since, but it does need to come down. Yeah, he will be. I think that with the immigrations being the way they were, Labour were always going to lose. And it seemed like a protest vote maybe, but the Conservatives won because, well, their name says it, Conservative. You don't liberally just let loads of people in without the work or the homes, which we didn't have for people then. We don't really now, but I think we're doing a bit better than we once were. In any case... Oh shit, train of thought. Fuck it.
I say to the right honourable gentleman, in relation to the Windrush generation, we have made absolutely clear that the Windrush generation, those people who came here from the Commonwealth before the 1st of January 1973, have a right to be here. They are British. They are part of us. The problem at the time was that they were not documented with that right, and that is what we are now putting right.
And I think it's important. This is being said quite bluntly. They are trying to fix this. So, as that is trying to be fixed, there are going to be many select committees interrogating people on this. I know Amber Rudd is being questioned a few times already. So why not ask questions about something else? Because this just seems like a waste. Jeremy Corbyn... The documents aren't destroyed, Carlos. The ones that proved they were legally here have been found. But Jeremy Corbyn could be easily focusing on other subjects because these questions seem trivial and almost like an excuse to try and... But this is where I think it's where he's actually ruined his own momentum from last week, because I think his focal point we're going to get to soon, and it's not... It's actually a bit shit, really. Lord Bear 2020. Yes. Lord Bear 2020 indeed.
He talks about action that the government has taken in relation to those who are here illegally. The Windrush generation are here legally. Action against those who are here illegally has been taken by successive governments. Checks on someone's right to work here came in 1997. Measures on access to benefits in 1999. Civil penalties for employing illegal migrants in 2008, both under a Labour government. And why have these actions been taken? Because people up and down this country want to ensure that the government is taking action on those people who are here illegally. It is not...
This is where the moral hysteria you're hearing from the Labour Party there is quite annoying. Because yes, the Windrush generation were caught up in that. But the government is trying to fix that. So why are you still moaning about it? You know everyone involved in the government is going to be questioned. You know this, and it will be public. So quite frankly, you're actually wasting your questions, and you're wasting your energy with moral outrage. Kind of pathetic, to be honest.
Fair to those people who work hard, who have a right to be here, who've contributed to this country, if they see people who are here illegally being given the same access to rights and services.
Something of interest, a number of governments have brought in policies to crack down on illegal immigrants. those that took our jobs, because I think it's quite important to do that. Let's not forget here, if you're illegal, you're not paying taxes because you're not legal. You're not contributing to the society. You are a leech, a parasite. And maybe you did escape from somewhere really bad, but it doesn't mean you have the right to take away work from people here. You should all try, if you try and immigrate to another country, you've got to do it legally. Even if I decide to move out one day and go to America or something, I'd have to do it legally. And not on some speedboat rocking up to Manhattan or some shit. Anyway.
Corbyn!
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister seems to want to get away from the injustice done to the Windrush generation.
Lol, no. She's trying to point out that you're conflating illegal immigrants with Windrush generation, and at the same time point out that yes, Windrush generation were pulled into illegal immigrants, and at the same time the hostile environment, or what the desire to want to turn that into a compliant, whatever you want to call it, environment. But the government is trying to fix that. You are conflating Windrush and illegal, and then you're shifting it when it suits you. Twat.
The Equalities and Human Rights Commission warned about the 2016 Immigration Act, saying the bill is likely to lead to destitution and may cause inhuman and degrading treatment in breach of Article 3 of the European Convention of Human Rights. They've quite rightly apologised for the scandalous way in which...
Oh, I've linked all of that in the description.
British citizens have been treated, but it was due to the 2014 and 16 Immigration Acts. So will the Prime Minister now commit to reviewing that legislation?
While your tea is at a crap dips, I could easily just bring an empty suitcase. Or, well, not empty. It won't have clothes in it or anything. It'd just be full of tea. Or none at all, because I don't really drink much tea these days. Especially not for the next 2 weeks, as I'm doing a freaking boatload of overtime. And I want the shekels, because I want to buy custodians. And paint brushes.
Legislation to make sure this never happens again.
As I set out for the House last week, this is a generation who came here prior to 1973. The Labour front bench say we know this, but the questions that the Right Honourable Gentleman is asking suggest that they're ignoring some of the facts in relation to this.
It's because his questions are scripted. He doesn't think on the spot or get anything fed to him. He just has the questions written down and he asks them. That's all he does. He reads from a script. That's why when the Prime Minister throws something back at him, he doesn't know how to answer. He's actually shit right now. And it sucks because he was doing quite well last week. Was it the week before?
This is a generation who came here prior to 1973. We are not ignoring the problems that some members of this generation are facing. That is why my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, has set out a special team in the Home Office to deal with their inquiries, not just deal with their inquiries, but actively help them to find the documentation to clarify their status.
Corbyn would be shit in a call centre. He gets out of breath every third word. You see, when he gets worked up, he stops so much. It's hilarious.
That is why we have made the offer that my right honourable friend made of ensuring we can give them formal British citizenship, which recognises that they are British, but does so in a formal, documented way. The problem was that back prior to 1973, when the Windrush generation came here, they were not given documents that set out their status.
I think this, when the immigration rules were brought in, should have been tackled immediately. So we can trace this back to the Conservative government when the immigration policy was first brought in, I believe it was Conservative. Was it Wilson? Doesn't matter. Whichever government then, when the immigration policies were changed, should have issued the correct documentation to the people of the Windrush generation that were and all were entitled to remain here. I was, when I was working on this, I was actually going to play a clip from something Sargon said, talking about race. I think it was his little speech, his Dankula speech at Downing Street. He was talking about race, and the part about people who came here, worked here, were British is so appropriate. If no one knows if you don't know what I'm talking about, honestly, just go find that pleb and watch something. I don't know.
We are now putting that right, and we will leave no stone unturned to put that right.
Jeremy Corbyn!
Speaker, in 2013, the then Home Secretary said it was about creating a really hostile environment, and that's why she was introducing the legislation. Had the
For illegal immigrants.
Windrush generation not mounted the campaign that they have, had members on this side of the House...
Yeah, people still listen to Sargon.
...not raised the matter persistent...
Not just that side, you virtue signalling little shit.
There would be no compensation, there would be no review, there would be no apology. But, Mr. Speaker, any review of legislation needs to be wider than just immigration law. The dismantling of legal aid provision in 2012 made the impact of the 2014 Immigration Act harder to challenge. These policies swept up British citizens and legal migrants, causing them...
Yes, because they didn't have the documentation to confirm it. As stated multiple times by Theresa May, this shows to me you are not listening to the answers. This is why I am absolutely astonished you don't actually seem to grasp such basic concepts, and you seem to struggle with thinking on the spot. You've been given an answer, but you don't seem to be able to understand it enough to be able to then adjust your questions accordingly. This is why I think this week you've actually wasted your PMQs. I know a lot of people said that he flayed her on Twitter, but he didn't. He didn't. He's beaten her before a couple of times. I've openly said it. This time, though, he focused and obsessed over something that I think was a waste. LOL. Did they, Carlos? Oh, well, that's just hilarious.
Immense suffering as she was warned. So can the Prime Minister send a clear message today and tell us the hostile environment is over and that her bogus immigration targets that have driven this...
The hostile environment is gone, by the way. It's now the compliant environment.
Hostile culture will be scrapped. The Windrush generation have served this country and deserve better than this.
The Windrush generation are British. They have contributed...
I don't know why she had to state this every single damn time. It is quite astonishing that that is literally what she's having to do. And I love that the whip had to be used to even get the policy through, Carlos. That's amazing.
To this country. They have made their life here. Dealing with those people who are here illegally, not the Windrush generation, they are here legally. There are people who are in this country illegally. And I say to the Right Honourable Gentleman again, I've quoted the Right Honourable Member for Birmingham Hodge Hill when he was Labour's Immigration Minister. The Leader of the Opposition referred to 2013. In 2013, the then Shadow Home Secretary, the Right Honourable Member for Normanton, Pontefract and Castleford, said, "We need much stronger action from government to bring illegal immigration down." That is, well, the Labour front bench are saying the Windrush generation are not illegal. They are not illegal. They are here legally. That is...
This is why it almost seems like a pantomime this week. And they shout Miss Steam because they're children. Highly paid children. This is what children look like when they're not told to grow the fuck up.
That is what...
May made them illegal. Yes, that is true. That is quite true, actually. You got a point. Okay, so when they were destroyed, the cards, or when they were alleged to have been destroyed, yes. And that blame could certainly be placed on May, although I do maintain the time frame between when it was originally ordered to when it actually was supposed to have happened, which I believe was 3 months after Theresa May took office. Was she Shadow Home Secretary before then? Or not? Because if she wasn't, then I don't think she would have had. I don't believe she would have had enough time to adequately go through. Why did Google? I love that. I went to Google Theresa May, and the first thing that came up was Theresa May children. So I'm sorry, I'm not. She hasn't got kids. Why the fuck would I want to know that? I want to know what she did before she was Home Secretary. Home Secretary, Minister for Women and Equalities, Member of Parliament. Okay, well, hang on. Was she not in the Shadow Cabinet? Apparently not. Okay. Oh well, she was never a Shadow Home Secretary. Interesting. Oh well, let's continue.
That is why we are providing the support to enable them to get the documents for their status. What we are.
I know, Irate Bear. It was the first thing that came up as a Google search when I went to look up her parliamentary history. And yeah, May doesn't lose her temper very much, Laura. But she does have a very weak voice. So I think if she loses her temper, I can't imagine it actually sounds that good. Might sound like a cockatiel screeching.
Talking about what the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Leader of the Opposition, is talking about is whether or not we should deal with illegal immigration. And up and down this country, the British public will tell him.
I would say he's not really interested in the illegal immigration part. Just to play devil's advocate for a second, he's interested in dealing with the Windrush generation that have been considered illegal immigrants. I just thought I'd just do that for a second.
We should deal with illegal immigration.
Jeremy Corbyn!
Mr. Speaker, we're talking about the environment created by her as Home Secretary for 6 years when she knew full well of the problems the Windrush generation were facing.
As more and more of this information has come out, it would certainly support the argument he just made. Does seem to have some credibility. I get the feeling this is going to spiral out of control a little more, which will lead to what he wants, which I don't think should happen. I'm not a fan of finalities like this anyway.
At last, she's been forced to act upon it. Last week, the current Home Secretary admitted the Home Office sometimes loses sight of the individual.
Hardly a surprise with the total number of people coming in and out of this country and the total number who are also in this country. Who actually thinks of the individual when there are 67 million people?
Yet we now know that when she took over from a predecessor, her intent was to harden.
Burko is not doing his job properly at this particular PMQ. I quite agree with you.
This cruel and misdirected policy, pledging to
Hello, Prospero.
do so ruthlessly. A report last month by immigration officials stated the hostile environment measures were not even having the desired effect.
Right. This took me a while to find because there are a few reports. There are a number of reports on the .gov website. There's an article, though, on the Independent, which I use then to try and find it. And I think this is mentioned in the foreword of the... Oh, what's it called? It's called the Inspection of the Right to Rent Scheme. And I think, if I can pull it up, I've got it here. Here we are. The Immigration Act of 2014 introduced a range of hostile environment measures, since renamed compliant environment measures by the compliant measures. Oh dear, fuck you, commie in space. People's Republic. Oh dear. Where was it? At the end of 2016, I reported on the hostile environment measures relating to driving licenses and bank building societies. Blah blah blah. Ah, God, I wish I'd actually... You know what I wish I'd done? Because the foreword's quite long. I wished I'd just highlighted the relevant paragraph. In any case, this is the one he's referring to, and I could go into the context, but quite frankly, I spent far too much time on this one reading the summary of conclusions and I think the recommendations. And honestly, when I finished that, I realised, oh look, I didn't need to read any of that. It was utterly irrelevant. Oh, there was something of interest I remember from page 9. It was the creating a hostile environment for residential tenancies. The Immigration Act of 2014 introduced this range of hostile environment measures, since renamed compliant, a number of which were extended and reinforced in the Immigration Act of 2016. Speaking publicly prior to the 2014 Act, the Home Secretary said that the government would create a really hostile environment for illegal immigrants, because what we don't want is a situation where people think they can come here and overstay because they're able to access everything they need. Yeah. This is the damning quote that is going to live with Theresa May for a while, I think. Oh, did you? I knew you'd do that as well. I bloody well knew you'd do it. Anyway, that source is in the description if anyone is at all interested, along with, I believe, the article that I reference. Oh, you actually did time them out. Amazing. Brilliant. Let us continue with this.
The current Home Secretary inherited a failing policy and made it worse. Isn't it time she took responsibility and resigned?
Right, so there it is, the finality. Jeremy Corbyn is calling on for Amber Rudd, this one, to resign. So, what this bothers me, why this bothers me, is your way of dealing with someone with a load of things going wrong is, instead of having them fix the problem, walk away. Isn't that like a cop-out? Or if anything, giving that person an easy exit? Okay, it does mean their political career on the front bench is over. It's over. Game over. You're done. I personally don't accept that. It's similar to when David Cameron stepped down. My belief was he should stay on until the negotiations were completed. That was my view. But he chose to be a pussy and leave. That surprised me. Amber Rudd is under tremendous pressure, and she has made mistakes and openly admitted it and apologised, and is now actively working to correct it. I think if she can correct this and do it well, then she should be allowed to keep her job. I don't say that as some kind of appeal to someone's morals or emotion shit. I just believe that getting rid of somebody because of a mistake is fucking stupid, and it means that the problem isn't then resolved because they've then got to find someone else to fix the mistake. What's the bloody point? And yes, Corbyn is a cheeky fucker, because it wasn't that long ago that when David Cameron was about to leave Parliament, David Cameron stood at this dispatch box here and said, it may be in my party's interests for you to stay, but it's not in the public's, so for heaven's sakes, go. And that was when Corbyn was at his weakest. He's not much better right now, to be honest. This was embarrassing. Ah, fuck it. Very loud. Thank you to Real Socky for $1.71. Hope this does not distract the stream. It does not. It does not at all. Thank you very much. So yes, Corbyn wants Amber to step down, and yeah, I don't agree with that. I think the whole concept of resignation is redundant. Certainly under the circumstances when you want to fix this mess. I mean, do you really think they have someone on backup to suddenly clear this up? It's not like the Labour Party would willingly work with the Conservatives to correct it. Anyway, you got bored, did you, Saki? Well, I'm glad your boredom gave me $1.71. That was actually very kind of you.
The House must calm itself. We've got a long way to go and a lot of backbenchers' questions.
British, they are part of us.
I'm going to skip a little bit because I think Theresa May's going to just basically...
And we are
she's going to use typical spiel to end this.
ensuring that they remain here and are able to continue to live their lives here. But it is also right that this government takes action against those people who are accessing services despite being here illegally and not putting in and not contributing to this country.
Just to address Saki for a second, I've been having the brush I need to get is not coming from Poundland. Oh dear God, if I used Poundland or Warhammer, oh my God.
And I say to the right honourable gentleman, if he wants to talk about issues of fairness, if he wants to talk about a government that is kind, then let's just look and see what a Labour government would be like. Because a Labour government that would wreck our economy, that would damage people's jobs, that would destroy, that would tax people and end up with...
So I don't care for any of this, because now it's like, you do this. Let's move on to Ian Blackford.
...on the day to enable this to take place.
Ian Blackford!
Thank you.
Prepare sphincters, everyone. Tighten up those anuses. It's Brexit time.
Mr. Speaker, can I, on behalf of those of us in these benches, pass on congratulations to the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge on the birth of the son, and I associate myself with the remarks of the Prime Minister and Stephen Lawrence. Mr. Speaker, the CBI, the NFU, the Scottish Government, the Welsh Government, the House of Lords, an overwhelming...
Lol, he said Welsh Government.
Members of this House want the UK to remain in the customs union. Why is the Prime Minister on the side of her...
Because the people voted against it, you fucking chuckle. Ugh. You are such an idiot. I'll let this go out. Fucking
cynical Brexiteers, frontbenchers, and not working in the interests of all the nations of the United Kingdom.
What?
I'm just going to say, in the interests of all the nations of the United Kingdom. Okay, let's play this game. Northern Ireland voted, I believe, I think it was 55% to remain in the EU and 45% to leave. Scotland was 75-25, I believe. Wales, if I remember correctly, didn't they vote to leave? I think. And England voted to leave. So, if it's in the interests of all the countries, it would be in the interest to respect the fucking vote, you stupid fat shit. Honestly, you're wearing a tailored suit because you're so fat.
That the British people voted to leave the European Union. In voting to leave the European Union, they voted to leave the single market and the customs union. What we want to ensure is that we as...
I will say that if recent news is to be believed, we're probably going to stay in the customs union because this idiot is weak as fucking shit. Oh, she's doing my head in, honestly. The House of Lords... Oh... I was going to do a whole stream. I was talking to Skog, who might still be in the chat about this last night, and a few others. and I think he suggested I just put on loop an audio clipping of me laughing. I think, wasn't that it? Oh, no, that was something else. That was David Shitrat. That was something else. But the House of Lords thing, abolition, maybe it was? In any case, House of Lords need abolishing, honestly. Who cares what they think? They're out of touch, antiquated. They, quite frankly, and literally, do not serve in the interest of the people. They think they serve in the interest of the people because they're smug shits. They would fit in San Francisco quite nicely if any of them had the ability to bend over and sniff their own farts. I've only heard of David Shitrat by that name today, because previously I would call him Spineless Foreskin, as he was an old friend of mine. Yeah.
As a country are able to independently negotiate free trade deals around the West.
If we stay in the customs union, we can't negotiate with anyone else around the world. That's a simple fact. We need to leave the customs union. If we leave the EU, and during that transition time are signing up deals, but we're a member of the customs union, then we don't get those deals. In fact, we don't have trade at all, really. That doesn't go through them. I'm sorry, how is that fair on us? You talk about acting in the interest of the people, but you're not. It's just silly.
Of the world, that we are also able to ensure that we deliver on our commitment for no hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, and that we have as frictionless a border as possible between the United Kingdom and the European Union. What businesses tell me is that they want that tariff-free, frictionless border, and that's what we're negotiating for them.
Blackford. Mr. Speaker, that answer simply isn't good enough. The single market and the customs union, quite simply, were not on the ballot paper.
Shut the fuck up, you prick. It said leave the EU or remain. People voted, 17.4 million voted to leave. Okay, we're leaving the EU. We leave them, we leave the common fisheries policy, we leave the customs union, we leave the single market. We might leave the human EU courts as well. We leave everything. You don't get to choose what you want to stay a part of. This isn't cherry picking 101. Laura, I'd like you to go up to her and just flick her on the tit, because I think it would be very funny. Maybe do a video of it, because I want to see her react. It would be hilarious. Just use your phone. Anyway, as far as this goes, with the EU stuff, yes, Scotland mostly voted to remain. But these arguments, they come from such a horrible place of nationalist intent, and not from, well, actually we are unionist. As a country, we are a union. One of the few that actually work, unlike, let's go with EU. It's a fun little pet project, isn't it? Yes, exactly, Prospero. Essentially, this calls the voters morons. This talking down nonsense is done by politicians in this chamber and in the House of Peers. Quite frankly, it is beneath them. But we'll let him ask his question.
The Minister's own government analysis shows almost every sector of the economy and every region of the United Kingdom would be negatively impacted if the UK...
Oh, fuck off with that. I know I sound a little terse with this one, but I'm going to make it quite clear. Before Brexit, the Bank of England got involved. It put those forecasts out there, and they were all wrong. Companies were supposedly going to tank, and what happened? Our economy recovered within 2 days. Or was it 3? Our economy is still stable. This nonsense and scaremongery is still going on, and quite frankly, it is, well, disgusting. It's embarrassing as well. Yeah, when the SNP are rather interesting. They're one of the few governments that would tax their people further to fund their pet projects rather than admit they overspend. They don't actually have any grasp on their own economy. They want to leave the UK. Interesting to note, though, since we fund the UK, fund a few of their own like things, pharmacy, tuition, you know, the important stuff, they wouldn't be able to join the EU because their economy would tank the moment they left. How funny would that be? Oh dear.
Leaves the customs union. Negotiations in Brussels are effectively at a standstill because the government are bereft of ideas on how to deal with the Irish border issue. Why is it that jobs, living standards, even the Good Friday Agreement are all secondary concerns to this government? Will the Prime Minister confirm now that if this place votes in favour of a customs union, that will be the negotiating position of her government?
I'm going to answer the question for her because, quite frankly, I'm done with this. We are not staying in the customs union, you colossal barnstorming thunder cunt. Honestly, how many times do you have to be told we're leaving? Drill this into what must be a low IQ and incredibly dense skull. I would assume your brain is the size of a dinosaur's, i.e. a walnut. I think that's the Stegosaurus. Except you don't have the plates on the back to look cool. It's quite impressive that while you have persisted in this bleating on about the EU, you typically did it from the position of Scotland's interests, which your predecessor used to do as well, Angus McRoberts, I believe, before he lost his seat, which made me happy because I was sick of seeing that miserable cunt's face. Right. Anyway, we're leaving the customs union, we're leaving the single market, we're leaving the common fisheries policy, fuck it, we'll leave the courts as well. We are leaving the EU. We're not leaving Europe. EU though, yes. As Nigel Farage put it, your pet project was fun, but honestly, your time has come. I think he played John Cena's intro music now for that, I guess. It's quite sad. I'm done with this shit. To summarise, tomorrow I shall endeavour to use the thunder cunt in a sentence. Right, you should. It is glorious. The guy I was talking to, that's Ian Blackford, or Angus McRoberts and Ian Blackford. Angus McRoberts was Angus McRoberts was the original leader of the SNP, and Ian Blackford is the current leader. Yeah, exciting shit. I think I'm done here because I've got to be up at 6 o'clock tomorrow, so I need to go to bed soon. Unless there is anything anyone would like to add in the chat before I finish. How about we just line up some tugboats and drag your whole island over here, then you can leave Europe. Dear oh dear. Okay. Well, this has all been fun. Hopefully this will be on next week so I can continue to moan about the Windrush generation. Let's hope that by then Corbyn's realised that's a ridiculous thing to argue about, and perhaps argue about something more interesting, because I think it's been on repeat with Windrush, Brexit and the NHS, but nothing that we could actually talk about, like Telford being a prime example, or Syria, let's talk about that, or Russia and the Novichok stuff. So yeah, and before I forget, thank you again, Socky, for that donation. It was very kind of you. And goodbye, everyone.